States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, everyone knows we've been through the public hearing phase for Life Cert Foundation hardship waiver application, and now arrived at a point where the town board needs to render a decision under the law. There will be no public comment during this meeting, as we indicated at the end of last meeting. At this point, then I would like to turn it over to our town attorney, Al Rapplier, to give us a rundown on where we stand legally.
Sure. Just a brief overview. As you recall, obviously we implemented this moratorium back in February. At the time, it was because there was a great concern over proposed development on the town's unpaved roads, and also because we had our ongoing zoning revision and the impact that may or may not have on it. There were several versions of the moratorium that were presented. The board considered at least 3 versions. Ultimately, we adopted one that had in it a hardship waiver, a variance. Those versions were all shared both with the attorney for the applicant and with Jeff Baker. He was the attorney for the Concerned Citizens Group. And in that moratorium, the variance, of course, had a language in it. And the standard there was an unnecessary hardship, which not a mere delay in being permitted to make an application or waiting for a decision on the application would be sufficient. So we do have a standard that's in the law itself. In fact, that language came to us from Jeff Baker, the attorney for the Concerned Citizens, and that's something that the town board adopted. Mr. Sloan and LifeServe Foundation had an application pending before the Zoning Board of Appeals, and it's still there. They were about to go to a public hearing, and they were almost finished, getting ready to finish the environmental review process as well. And because the property on which this project is located on an unpaved road in the town, it fell under the requirements of the moratorium, and they could not proceed, and he therefore filed his application for the variance for the hardship. The initial plan was, as we spoke last meeting, that I would have conversations, attorney-client conversation with every member, and try and prepare a proposed resolution that we could take a look at, read every word, every sentence, and determine whether it was appropriate and make a vote on it. Unfortunately, circumstances being what they are, family crisis, the holiday, that didn't happen. And so what I would propose that we do tonight would be a discussion as we're having now as far as the background and the hardship standard. Each of the board members would then be able to speak. Probably the best way to do it from a parliamentary aspect would be for there to be a motion and a second, and then open it for discussion, and then vote on that motion. If it passes, great. If it fails, then there may be another motion. We just don't know. And that would allow, of course, for that conversation to occur here in an open meeting, an open forum. As I mentioned, the standard is in the town law itself, in the moratorium. And again, that was looked at by both attorneys, suggested to us by Mr. Baker. But I would also suggest to you that Montgomery case, Montgomery Place versus Town of Montgomery, will at least give you some guidance, because that's a case that went up to the appellate division, albeit the second division, not the third department. But it still gives you guidance, because in that case the court found that there was a hardship, and they also found that the town had properly looked at whether there might be any impacts to their ongoing revision of their zoning law as well. So it fits, the fact pattern fits perfectly. And so I think at least that would be something to look at for guidance. And again, in the papers that have been submitted, both by Mr. Howard and Mr. Baker, that was the case that they both agreed would be instructive and could have some influence and guidance on your decision. By way of housekeeping, we did refer this application to the County Planning Board in accordance with Section 239 of the General Municipal Law. And the County Planning Board did meet, they did review it, and they sent it back saying that it is a local issue, that they do not believe there are any county-wide or inter-county impacts, and so therefore we are free to act in the normal capacity. If they had come a different way, recommended something, and we chose to not go with their recommendation, if we were going to overrule that, we would have to vote by a supermajority. It's not the case here, we just simply vote. Also, with respect to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, that is 6 NYCRR, Section 617. My recommendation to the board is this is a Type 2 action, and therefore it is exempt from the secret review. There is specific language in that section. It's subsection 5 and subparagraph 30 that says that the adoption of a moratorium on land development or construction is specifically exempt from SECRA. And there's also another subsection, number 27, that says that the adoption of regulations, policies, procedures, and this is the important wording here, local legislative decisions in connection with any action on this list. So those two played together tell us that this action tonight is exempt from SECRA. I have reached out to the DEC and spoken with the Region 4 Chief Counsel and also with the DEC consultant that they have on staff, who is a resource for public officials, and they both concur that in fact this is exempt. So that's the preamble, if you will, or introduction, and I guess we can get down to the meat of the meeting.
So that we can get to discussion, and we have a resolution in place. What sort of resolution would you propose that we?
Well, it would be a motion to either approve or disapprove the application for the variance.
So, all right. Well, I move that we approve the hardship waiver.
Can you speak up? We can't hear anything.
Yeah. I would make the motion that we approve the hardship waiver application. We need a second for discussion purposes. Okay, so we've got a motion and a second. We've arrived at a comment section. What would we like to start?
Can you give us your reasons for?
I would be happy to, and then we're going to. Well, that may well be my decision. That would not define my decision.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
I can't.
Nobody can hear you.
Okay. I'm gonna read some words here. This is not my normal course of doing business, but we don't have a normal situation here. So, what I'd like to say is we've spent a great deal of time listening to both sides on the issue of whether or not to grant this hardship waiver to the Life Serve Youth Foundation. And historically, this has been a town that has worked together to solve its problems. And while there may be divisions, we haven't had the type of divisiveness we've seen lately. The people of this town traditionally held out their arms to help the underprivileged, both young and old alike. And I personally have no desire to be part of some new tradition of turning our backs on those who could use the help the most. And when I asked Mr. Sloan, for instance, to include local use in his foundation's work, he instantly agreed. When it comes to a hardship waiver, part of my thinking is that we as a town board created the Life Serve Youth Foundation's hardship through the imposition of the moratorium. At the time it was put in place, there was the possibility of at least one separate potential issue that made that moratorium more palatable. No such issues currently loom. Adam Sloan was lawfully proceeding through the town's zoning board of appeals prior to the implementation of the moratorium. I do believe the moratorium law contains the standard by which this application should be decided, an unnecessary hardship, which is not a mere delay while waiting for the moratorium, is the exact language. Mr. Sloan has provided substantial proof that his fundraising activities are being severely hampered by the moratorium. In fact, you may well lose these pledges. Since we all know that oftentimes when people have disposable money for fundraising or donations, if they are not able to give it to their first choice, they most likely will move on and give it to another charity. I have faith in our zoning board of appeals. I think we should let it get back to work, and I will vote yes on this motion.
Can I just ask a question?
Nope. You're not having discourse with the public. This is a town board meeting.
So there's no public comment at
There will
all?
be no public comment at all. That was announced at the beginning of the meeting. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd like to ask my fellow board members if we all reviewed the applicant's 501c3. Did anybody read it?
I did.
I'm not sure what the question is. So,
Well, it's, how many pages? 20, 25 pages?
well, regardless of its length.
Application that we only received, I think I got it yesterday, after asking the applicant multiple times, or asking our counsel with the
No, I didn't see it.
Pardon me?
I didn't read it, didn't see it.
Okay. It's a very lengthy application, and really what it does is it sets out the master plan for this charity, which is very extensive, and it's directed to the IRS in order to get a non-for-profit status. And I'm not an attorney, but just looking it over, a couple of things popped out at me, a couple of red flags. First of all, the address for the applicant is in New York City. It's not even in Chatham. It's on Greenwich Street in New York City. The revenues and expenses sheet for the projections for the next few years for this charity amount to almost $3 million, $2.8 million plus. And it seems that in 15, he's going to raise, the charity is going to raise almost $2 million, or 1.8, 1.7. But the interesting item that I found on page 9 is under fundraising and revenues, and I'd like to read it. It's item number 4. Leasing property in the off-season. The camp will be in operation for 1 to 2 weeks prior to the first campers arriving, and for 1 to 2 weeks after the camp closes for debriefing and to plan for the next season. During the other weeks of the year, property may be periodically leased to non-profit or for-profit groups or organizations for educational or corporate retreats. It's understood that the LSYF will pay taxes on any unrelated business taxable income as applicable under the IRC section 511 through 513. Any unrelated business activities is anticipated to be minimal vis-a-vis revenue raised through donations and money raised from the public and public sources. Now, nowhere in this application and all these months of deliberation has this point been brought up. So it leads me to believe that we don't have all the facts of this whole enterprise. As I have the floor, I think I'm going to make my statement too, and I took the time to really deliberate this, because this is an important issue for this town. And I'm a strong proponent for zoning, as exampled by my almost 14 years on the town planning board. I consider the path to progress for the town of Chatham must be done orderly and methodically, without the distractions of those who advocate immediate change. The town has been working on the comprehensive plan since 2002. Very soon, the town board will receive the zoning implementation committee's recommendations to enact into law a new zoning code. Lest we lose sight, this is the reason this town board agreed to pass the moratorium. on any new development on dirt roads. This is what we must keep in mind and focus on as we deliberate the requested exemption for hardship. The citizens of the town of Chatham care deeply about the comprehensive plan. When implemented into our zoning code, it will protect every property owner's investment in their homes, generally the largest asset that they own. Therefore, the moratorium this board enacted on development on dirt roads preserves the status quo while we work to update our zoning code and to bring it in compliance with the comp plan over the course of the next year. The moratorium is temporary. It will permit us to thoughtfully and properly consider the ZIC's recommendations. This board should not rush to judgment. To direct municipal boards, the New York State Local Boards Comprehensive Planning Local Leaders Guide to Moratorium on Development states, quote, "The moratorium prevents developers and property owners from rushing to develop their land under current land use rules while the community is in the process of changing. So by doing, it helps to accomplish the purpose of the new rules by giving them the broadest possible applicability and preventing development that is inconsistent with them." With this, unquote, with this hardship exemption request, if the town board allows an exemption and development while there are inadequate land use controls, the ultimate worth of the comprehensive plan will be undermined. We must take stock of the thousands of hours and all the years that the comp plan and the ZIC have expended and invested in shaping the town's future growth. The applicant is requesting a hardship exemption. However, after careful consideration, due diligence, evaluating the statements of the public, which were many letters received, I consider the request for hardship to be unfounded based on the following. The applicant has not proven his hardship. He has full use and full enjoyment of his property. Any stated expenditures he made are part of the property ownership. As a real estate broker, I know all too well that the purchase of property requires a change of use special permit, and municipal approval must have a contingency to purchase. Otherwise, you run the risk of mere speculation. The construction of tennis courts, barn reconstruction into dormitories, overall concentration and intensity of 30 to 40 young adults and staff on top of the hill in a residential setting will greatly impact the area's dirt roads and the overall bucolic setting of the Deep Dean Valley. My obligation as a town board member is to investigate the facts, and I don't think we have all the facts, and listen to the arguments put forth by the majority of the public. However, ultimately, I have to vote for the best course of action to protect the citizens of the town from liability and the integrity of the implementation of this new zoning code. Therefore, I urge this board to vote against the request for a hardship exemption. Our vote tonight must be a long-term decision which takes into consideration the future of Chatham for many years to come.
Want to say anything?
Go ahead.
Okay. Figured you might want to chime in. No?
I got
Okay. So I prepared a statement also, and for me, this goes back many years. From my years on the steering committee, the comprehensive plan, working on the recreational part of the committee, the arts and recreation, the signage, all that type of thing. Spent hours and hours, and then many more hours on the steering committee. And then what happened once the plan was completed and voted through, problems started to occur. So, you know, I'll read a statement, but I just want you to know, for me, it's about the comprehensive plan, always has been. I want to first state that, especially after reviewing the detailed narrative found in IRS Form 1023, application for recognition of exemption under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code, that the applicant has a well-thought-out, worthy endeavor. It's a great idea, but the location, timing, and other circumstances has rendered it to be both difficult and controversial. It's important that a town board listen to the public that elected it. Certainly not everyone in town voted for me, but once elected, it is my responsibility to listen to all of the citizens, weigh their concerns and arguments, and then take a position. At the same time, the town board has a responsibility to defend the town from potential threats that could have long-term impact both financially and toward how we view this place. It is why I and many others pour our collective hearts and souls into the development of the comprehensive plan. Frankly, the elected officials of your town have let you, the citizens, down by failing to implement the comprehensive plan. I do not want to diminish the difficult task and hard work that the current Zoning Implementation Committee personally named so that the word comprehensive was not used. But the first 2 years of this committee's work was unproductive. The committee chair was using an outdated draft in which the modified contents were used against me for political gain. It took several months to resolve. Then the committee spent several more months absurdly deciding if Part 2 of the document was part of the plan. I sat in the audience and offered guidance to help resolve these issues, only to be told, "No, we've got this," by the chair. Later, as I tried to report out what I was observing to the citizens, one of the members threatened to close the meeting to the public if what they were discussing ended up in the newspaper. At that point, I resolved to get reelected and did. You should know that your town board has, to this day, not seen one word of what the committee has created in regard to zoning changes. We just recently received the minutes of the meetings some 5+ years later. But the fact remains, I have no idea what has been done by the committee. It may be amazingly wonderful work, but I don't know. Because of this, I am placed in a position of possibly allowing a special use to proceed, despite not knowing if it is in compliance with the intent of the comprehensive plan. We have been assured that the Zoning Implementation Committee is nearing completion. Bless them for their stamina. For me, all the ugliness and manipulation of the public and town board members is background noise. That is attempting to sway me from my focus. That remains the implementation of a truly well-written, highly bipartisan, comprehensive plan that went through great effort to reflect the desired direction of our community. The moratorium we passed, 4-1, was created to give us breathing room in regard to the comprehensive plan implementation process. It makes perfect sense to wait and see what the new code has to offer and be better prepared to avoid or defend against costly litigation. It was also an attempt to remove some of the heat created with the application we are dealing with. Unfortunately, that has not been realized. Just yesterday, the town board received a copy of the not-for-profit application of Life Serve Youth Foundation. It reveals the following important facts pertinent to this hardship application. The foundation has projected for this tax year $1,685,000 of revenue, $1,114,600 in expenses, leaving a balance of $570,400 and $450,000 in cash. At the time of application, $825,000 in commitments are claimed. Thus, this leads me to believe that there is little financial hardship. The location is generally defined as an area equidistant from Boston and New York City in upstate New York, not specifically the town of Chatham. Thus, this leads me to believe there must be other properties under consideration beyond the applicant's second home. Outside of the 10 weeks the camp is in operation, the facility would be leased for educational and corporate retreats. Given this information, the applicant's submission of letters from potential donors withholding donations is in direct conflict with the application filed with the IRS. The foundation has terrific financial assets and can easily sustain expenses during the period of the moratorium. Certainly the expenses are not above and beyond anyone else seeking a complex special use permit. It has not demonstrated to me that it has suffered extraordinary financial hardship. Also, as per this application, the foundation is apparently looking at other sites rather than here in Chatham. I guess I'm to ignore the coincidence that the only site revealed to us is that of the second home of the foundation's director, chairman, president, and treasurer. Considering another very suitable farm directly across from Crellin Park has been apparently rejected by the foundation, I can only wonder why they are not meeting their own mission of finding a suitable location that which fulfills it and fits very nicely into our town's recreation area. Based on the law we have written and passed, I am not convinced that a hardship exists. I am convinced that if this comprehensive plan implementation process had occurred in a timely fashion, we would not be sitting here today and would not have put this town through the unnecessary turmoil we have encountered. That said, I believe approval of a hardship does have the potential of undermining our implementation process that is nearing the final phase. We as a town must complete our due diligence in forming our future zoning code. For me, as it has been for many years, implementation of the comprehensive plan is paramount. I support the laudable concept of Life Serve Youth Foundation. However, I do not support granting of a hardship from our moratorium law.
I guess I don't have any written down so nice and fancy as some of my other board members have, because that's just not me. I'm plain and simple. Plain and simple fact of the matter is, our zoning board of appeals looked at this, did its due diligence. I went to them because that's their field. This is what they do. This is what they've done for our town for many, many years. They found nothing wrong with this project, and I am not going to go against the zoning board. The reason for that is that they have gone to litigation after litigation on things that they have done and have won every time they've had litigation, because they do it the same way every time for every applicant. They don't make exceptions for who the person is, where they're from, how many kids they have or don't have. They go by the facts are there in front of them. And for that reason, that's why I'm supporting this waiver. Also, there's a lot of talk here tonight and in the past about the comprehensive plan. I'm just upset that my fellow board members apparently have not read that, because if they did read it, they would realize that under the comprehensive plan that was written up, this would have been passed. Looking at the ZIC committee that you've talked, we have gone over this. We've discussed it many times. We're at one point, we're looking to make definitions for every individual type of camp, not just camps in general. And in doing that, we also were talking about the size of the camps, what they should be. Some of us tossed around thinking that maybe this property should be larger than what the comprehensive plan had in it, which was 25 acres. We were looking about doing it up to maybe possibly up to 50 acres. And through the process and discussion amongst us all, we decided that it was in our best interest, the towns, to stick with which the comprehensive plan said, which was the 25 acres which was in there. So that's what we have agreed to do and continue to do. So using the comprehensive plan, using the ZIC committee, if this was to be approved as we would submit, as we've come to at this point, this would be a mute issue. This would have passed. It's that simple to me. I have no personal stake in this. I know some of the people here. I've lost business personally because of some of the people that are here that are opposed to my decision on this. I'm sorry for that, but it doesn't sway who I am and what I believe. And my belief is that there is a hardship here for Mr. Sloan, and I am in support of the waiver.
board has not seen any of the work of the ZIC plan.
Read the
ZIC
comprehensive
committee-
plan as it's written now.
Excuse me, this board has not seen anything of the ZIC plan that's going to be given to us soon.
No,
Nor
it's-
has the public.
it's
And
in-
so therefore, this board has to look over all the recommendations. And this board will make the final decision with public input. So your statement is irrelevant as to the basis of why you think that
No, it's
it
how
would
I
pass.
think.
It
I
would
didn't-
pass, because we haven't passed it yet. We're the final say.
Yes, we are.
So your argument doesn't stand up.
As I recall, Bob, we did not see much of the comp plan other than the folks who were on the steering committee.
No.
We pretty much received the whole document.
You saw minutes
We saw
created by
minutes.
me
Right.
every time, and parts of the plan were submitted to the board. All along, it was an open process.
Right, well, we
But
received
bottom
minutes.
line is, once we got the plan, it was up to the board to
Right.
review it,
Well,
and
of
that's
course.
what we did.
Well, that's not the point I'm trying to make, nor am I trying to start a battle here. As I recall, we didn't see the total comprehensive plan until it was done. I know we saw minutes and we saw what was going on and how it was being handled, but we received the whole document at one
Yeah,
time.
one time,
Okay,
right.
all right, so
Exactly.
that's the
Same
point I'm
thing
trying
that's
to
gonna
make.
be done with the ZIC.
That's what has to happen.
Because it is, quite frankly, you can't look at 1/3 of it and know what you're looking at.
Correct.
You just can't.
And that's what we've done with the ZIC. We cannot just give you parts of that plan and make a lot of sense. It has to be done in its entirety. Then at that point, we'll be giving to this board, it'll be given to the public for review. There'll be several hearings, I'm sure, to discuss it, go back, possibly make changes, look at the changes. It's by far done, but in my opinion, from the guy who's been sitting here for this 5 years working on this thing and reading the comp plan, it hasn't changed my mind. That's my opinion. You have yours, I have mine. I didn't argue yours, and I'm not going to. But mine hasn't changed any.
I just wanted to make sure that, it's a process. You're still in the process, and the process is that once it gets to the board, because when the comprehensive plan did make it to the board, probably, I bet 90% of it went absolutely unchanged. But there was like 10% of it that were problematic, that stuck out, and we did some very creative things to fix them. And then the rest was make a readability, and that was Jesse's push to get that done. He wanted so that there wasn't kind of like a Cliff's Notes on the side to make it easier to understand the plan, which was great. So we did that. The same thing is going to happen with the code. Once the code comes to us, probably it may not be changed one bit, but there might be a couple problem areas that we're going to have to focus on. And I just don't know what
Without
they
a
are.
doubt, there's gotta be.
And I just, my point is, I don't know it, I don't have it. I have to see those words, because they're the legal that's the legal document I have to go by, is the code that you create. I can't wait to see it, truthfully.
Me neither.
Okay, ready for me?
Yeah.
I scribbled a few notes, and Henry, I agree with you. I've been working on the ZIC committee with you, and we can't put it out in bits and pieces because it's not coherent in bits and pieces. It has to wait for the whole ZIC, the whole new law to come out so you can refer to where you have to refer to and look at it as one big document. And I only want to say a few things. Irregardless of whether this camp is a good idea, bad idea, a location, parcel, whatever, we still have to make a decision. I've been a little dismayed at the arguments that I've been hearing in town and the misinformation and untrue information that's been floating around. I just feel that we're all adults here and we should be able to debate in a calm, collective manner without getting mad at each other and without disagreement. Because if we don't have disagreement someplace along the line, we'd never get anywhere. And if you think about it, sometimes we learn something from the other side. So I would just like to say that if we're going to disagree, we should do it calmly, more calmly. Because we did the moratorium, the reason we did it was to study the dirt roads and development along the dirt roads. That was the moratorium language, that we needed to study whether this was appropriate for that, for areas like that. And that is part of, the minute we started the plan, the one thing that I remember that went through the plan process all the way was, we love our dirt roads and we love our country. And so the moratorium language was on that. So if the dirt roads and what's on them is that much of an issue now before the plan and the new zoning is there, it looks like it needs more clarification. So I am at this time not in favor of granting the hardship. It's a relatively small amount of time. And the other thing is, I have been starting to look through the comprehensive plan and reread it, and we're going to look through the minutes of the ZIC. And I would like to get a group together to help me study what this means for the dirt roads and if we are on the right track in the plan, because it started in 2003 and that's a long time ago. Whether we followed through with the right ideas and are we sure that's the way that we want to go. And it's not going to be a thing that's going to take very long, but I would like to have a couple of other people. I've had one person volunteer. So when you're ready.
I'm your girl.
Okay, so are you all set?
I'm all set.
Everybody else all set?
Just on the moratorium, of course everyone knows I wasn't in favor of the moratorium because I don't believe it was needed. But in saying that, that does not mean that I did not believe we should be protecting our dirt roads. I believe we have something in place to do that, which is our ZBA and our planning. That hasn't changed any. I still believe that we need to protect our dirt roads because that is what the citizens want. But I don't think we needed to do a moratorium to prove that point.
Anyone else? All right. Well, we'll call for a vote. Those in favor of the resolution?
Would you repeat the resolution?
Okay, the resolution is to grant the hardship waiver. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Motion is defeated.
We would need another motion then to proceed.
I'd suggest I make another motion for, well, let me just go right to it, try to make a motion. I'll make a motion to direct the town attorney to prepare a resolution, a more detailed resolution outlining the discussion and vote that occurred tonight. How's that? Sound all right?
I second that.
And probably with the final statement that
Right.
the determination of the vote is
Right.
not to grant.
Not to grant.
So that's the resolution, is to not grant the hardship waiver.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, you moved that, Bob?
I second.
Second, okay. Further discussion? All in favor of not granting the hardship waiver?
No, we did.
Aye.
This is
Directing directing Tal to.
Well, directing Cal
prepare the
to
resolution.
prepare one, right, that's for not granting the hardship waiver, correct?
Okay.
All in favor? All in favor of directing Cal to grant, to write a resolution for not granting the hardship waiver?
Correct, there you go.
Okay,
Aye.
Aye.
okay. Opposed? Aye. So that resolution is convoluted as it is.
Yep.
Tell Scott.
Yeah.
Screw it away.
I think we all know what it means, but. Anyone else have anything else they would like to say? Tal, you all set?
No, I got it all.
Okay. All right, I guess we need a motion.
Motion.
Second, anyone?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.